Hi guys, welcome back to Advanced UI Techniques, and in this lesson we're going to take a look at how we can create these arrows, the navigation arrows for the left and right side, and of course the bottom here for these dots. So it's pretty straightforward. So let's pick up from where we left off and open up our layers palette, and then in the slider group open that up, and right above everything else just create a new layer, rename this BG. And then we're going to choose the elliptic marquee tool, and then it doesn't matter about the foreground, leave that as it is. What we're going to do is going to drag out a selection. We're not going to hold down the shift keys, but we're going to hold down the space bar just so we can make sure that's nice and central, position it correctly, and then we'll say about there. It's not quite round. Then press G on your keyboard, bring up the paint bucket tool, and it's going to fill that up. Control D to deselect. Now what we're going to do, we're going to open up our layer styles on this. So if you double click on that layer, we're going to give this a gradient overlay. Open up our gradient editor, and all we're going to do is going to change the black to a light grey, all the C's. So okay then. Then we're going to give it a stroke. We're going to change the size to 1, set the position to inside, and change the colour to white. Lastly, we'll give this a drop shadow, and we'll change the blend mode to normal. We're going to bring down the opacity to 20%. Going to uncheck use global light and change that to 90 degrees. And this is going to go distance is going to go down to 0, and we'll turn the size up to 15. It gives that a nice shadow all around that. So okay that. Then just position that. Or drag that layer underneath our slider BG, and there we have our background for our arrow. So next up then will be to add a little arrow there, and we can do that by using the custom shape tool. So if we select that, we're going to keep this as shape layers in the options bar here. We're going to set the foreground, make sure that's set to all the C's, which it was. Then open up your custom shape picker, and we're going to locate this arrow, which is should be installed on all Photoshop versions. Then we're going to create a new layer above BG. We're going to call this arrow, and then we're going to drag out our shape or arrow. Again, I'm not going to hold down the shift key, I'm just going to hold down the space bar, and we'll say roughly about there. Excellent. Then let's flip this. So go up to edit, go down to transform, and we'll flip this horizontal. Brilliant. Now open up your layer styles on this. So just right click on that, bring up your layer styles, and all we're going to do is going to give this a inner shadow, set the color to black. I'm going to turn the opacity down to about 45%, and then we're going to keep the angle as it is. I'm going to go distance at 1, 0, 2. Then we're going to give it a drop shadow. Change that blend mode to normal. Change the color to white. We're going to turn the opacity up to 100%, and we're going to go distance at 1, 0, 0. And that gives that nice inner look, that nice reflection, that white border there. So there's our first arrow. We're going to group these together. Control G to group those, and we're going to call this arrow. Change that name in a moment. Then with that group selected, press V on the keyboard, bring up the move tool, and then hold down the shift key and the alt key and the shift key, and it's going to click and drag that over like we've done before. Then we need to flip this, so go up to edit, transform, and flip horizontal. Then obviously of course we're going to move that in, hold down my shift key to make sure it stays where it is, stays horizontal, and there we have our first navigation arrows. Now the arrow I've made here is a little bit smaller than our finished product, but doesn't matter, it's more original. Then we're going to add our little dots at the bottom here. So how we're going to do this is pretty simple. We're going to make sure that shadows group is selected. We're going to choose the rounded rectangle tool. We're going to make sure that shape layers is selected in the options bar and radius is set to 6 pixels. Then we're going to set the foreground to all the C's. It doesn't really matter because we'll give this layer styles anyway. So let's drag out a shape and we'll go about, that looks good to me. We'll go about there. Then what we're going to do, we're going to give it the same layer styles as our arrows. So if you open them up, then what we're going to do, we're going to right click on the FX icon here and the BG layer, and we're just going to choose copy layer styles, close them off, go back to our shape and right click at the end here and then paste layer style. But all we need to do though is add an inner shadow, so we need to bring up our layer styles in that, choose inner shadow. We're going to change the angle to 90 degrees, and then we're going to turn the disk size down to change that down to 4, and we'll bring the distance up to about 25, and the opacity can go down to about 30%. You've got that shadow going at the top there. So there we go, there's the background for that. And all we need to do is add our little circles. We'll call this BG and our layers palette, and then we'll group that together straight away. So Control G on that, so group that and just call this we'll call this navigation dots. That's what they are, they're dots. Then with the BG layer active, we're going to go over to our tools panel. We're going to choose the ellipse tool. We're going to make sure that shape layers are still selected, and then we're going to open up our foreground and set that to 3 and all the 6 to 6 6 6 6. Okay, that, and then I'm just going to drag out a little circle, hold down a shift key and a space bar to give it allow us to position this correctly, as I keep saying, and let go of that. That looks good to me. Okay, so what we're going to do next is give this some layer styles. So just going to give this an inner shadow and a drop shadow. Again, open up your layer styles then, and we're going to give that an inner shadow. I'm going to leave everything alone. What we're going to do is just turn the distance down to 1 and the size to 1. Then we'll give this a drop shadow, change the blend mode to normal, change the colour to white. We've done this before, and then give that, make sure it's definitely white, and then I'm going to bring the opacity right up to 100% and change the distance to 1 0 0. Superb, and then just click away from that so we can see it, and there we have our nice inner look dot. Now what we'll do is I'm going to copy these dots, so I'm going to V on your keyboard, Alt Shift, and just click and drag that across. Do that another 4 times or 3 times. Position that one about there, select them all in the layers palette, then go up to your align tools, and we're going to distribute horizontal centers. So what we're going to do next, we're going to change the color of these, apart from that one of course. So this one we're going to change that to white, and this one, or all of them, to white, like that, easy peasy. And that's it, that's our arrows done and our navigation dots done. Slightly different to our final product. What we'll do in the next lesson, we'll add in our stock image and our final bit here, which I'll call the sidebar. Then we're going to talk about how we can make some nice little effects inside this stock image, as well as our corner caps as well. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next lesson.